What's going on, everybody? Jackson Fuller here with the Star News, and for this latest episode of our little Zoom Time series, I'm happy to be joined by Chris Miller from the Jacksonville Daily News and Rod Baxley from the Fayetteville Observer, two fellow sports reporters here in North Carolina under our Gannett Media umbrella. First off, guys, I ask everybody the same question to start us off. How have you been holding up during quarantine and these times of coronavirus, these weird times that we've all been in so far?
I think we're holding up pretty good. It definitely stinks not having sports, and we're just having to make do with just do what we can during this time, and stay in communication with the coaches, and just seeing that they're okay, and the athletes and things like that. So, like I said, it definitely stinks, but we just got to keep our fingers crossed, and hopefully sports resumes after the dead period, June 15th.
And Rod, I think all of us have kind of been doing a little bit more news. What's it been like down in Fayetteville, and how are you kind of holding up?
Yeah, doing what we can, man. The biggest thing I'm trying to focus on is just taking it day by day, trying to get one day closer to normal. Because if you start thinking too far ahead, it can be overwhelming. But definitely starting to miss sports, man. There's nothing that really can replace that game where you really don't know how things are going to unfold. I mean, you can watch all the documentaries and reruns you want, but that can't replace the live action.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely it's you miss it early just because, oh man, what's this future going to be like without sports? And then as you keep going and going and it's still not back in your lives, you just miss it more and more. So we just kind of I want to have these two on and just discuss, coronavirus here in North Carolina. Obviously, the NCHSAA had a press conference on Tuesday with a whole lot of information. Really, I think the most information that they've kind of provided since this all started, because they're trying to inch their way closer to resuming sports. Before we get into anything, I want to say this is all kind of going to be, at least for me, opinion, a little bit of conjecture. We're not necessarily going to be reporting anything specifically, but some guesstimations from us. First off, Rod, what was kind of your biggest takeaway from Q Tucker's press conference on Tuesday?
Well, I think kind of just as a whole, patience with everything. Everybody keeps going back to that. I think that is the biggest key. And all of this is patience. I know people don't want to hear that, but that's what we have to do. I want sports back as much as anybody, but we can't just jump into things without knowing what we're going to do when we do jump into things.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and Chris, what about like when you look back and think about, we've had some time between now and Tuesday, what kind of jumps out of your mind as maybe one of the more important things that the NCHSAA, the message that they were trying to get across to us as the media and fans, players, and coaches?
Like Rod said, it's just about patience. There's still so many unknown factors that play a part in this, and so we just don't know what's going on. A lot of it just depends on what the government says, the federal and the state, and what the school systems say. And so there's a lot of moving pieces that kind of need to come together. And but the biggest takeaway is I saw a couple tweets and a couple things on social media saying, hey, we're going to be able to, once the dead period gets done, we're going to be able to return to sports. Yeah, we're going to be able to do this. And that's not necessarily the case. So you have to explain that to people, or we have to explain that to people that, no, that doesn't necessarily mean we can go back to sports. That's just a timetable that the state association has set before us. And, again, like Rod said, it's just a matter of being patient and kind of playing it day by day.
I know being patient is especially tough for the coaches involved because they love having those plans. And I was talking to a football coach a couple of days ago, and that's probably their biggest frustration is they just want to be able to, make a plan. And hey, if we're not going to be able to practice till August, just let us know and then we can plan that out. But there's still so much up in the air. I think my biggest takeaway was just how proactive the NCHSAA is being right now. And there is a sense of optimism, I think, that they're going to be able to have some sort of high school sports in the fall. I mean, football season's a kind of a different animal right now just because of all the fans and the contact that goes into it. But I mean, did you guys get that sense? It feels like as we inch closer to whenever the dead period does expire, there is some optimism from Q and the NCHSAA that they'll be able to host some sort of high school sports coming in this fall.
Yeah, I do like that Q said when they do bring sports back, they're going to bring all of them back in some capacity. I like that she's not singling people out. So, at least football players can condition and be with each other. I think that's very important. I was talking to Vernon Aldridge, our athletic director here in Cumberland County, and he said, these kids, they want to be back in a routine and a swing of things. And a lot of them need that structure on a day-to-day basis, something to look forward to. I think that was another one of my big takeaways is that Q said when we do get back, that everybody will be able to get back in some form or fashion. But yeah, football is a totally different animal when we start talking about the fall.
Yeah, and I think, Chris, I know we've kind of been talking about how the coaches and players here, when they saw that there's been some good news and then it feels like it goes back to bad news. I felt like that was just pure good news, and that's something that football coaches and basketball coaches, everyone was kind of concerned is, are they going to let these contact sports? Why can't we practice and condition and maintain social distancing? But that concern has kind of been pushed aside. Now they're going to be able to have that conditioning aspect in the summer that's really required for the fall.
Exactly. And I know a lot of coaches were really concerned. I mean, a lot of coaches said, look, we won't be surprised if we just had to start on August 1st, the first official day, and not have any kind of summer workouts or anything. I did talk to the Richlands football coach. He was hired pretty much a week and a half before this whole COVID-19, everything shut down because of the virus. So he at least had about 8 or 9 days to kind of introduce himself to the community and to the other coaches and to the kids, the players and everything. So he at least had a week or week and a half, but he said it stinks not being able to have the spring football, not being able to work with his team in the weight room and do all the things that a first-year coach certainly needs to do at this time to make sure his team is prepared for the season. So and he said everybody was in the same boat, so he wasn't making excuses. But Pat Bird is probably a familiar name in the Wilmington area. He used to help New Hanover, and now he's the head coach at Richlands. He you got to feel for him because he's jumped into a new situation and it's kind of tough on him that first couple months or so.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually did a story on that not too long ago about that. We have 2 first-year football coaches here in our coverage area, and while sure they're all on the same playing field, in a way the first-year coaches are still a little bit behind because they're not going to be able to implement those the new systems and the conditioning and the culture that they want to do. And that summer months are a big part of that. Obviously, the trump card with all of this is going to be, if there's no school, there's no sports. I don't think if kids aren't allowed to go into the classroom, there's no sports. But I kind of want to get you. For me, I'm thinking if we have kids in classrooms, we are going to have sports. Do y'all agree with that? Chris, you start off. If we have kids in classrooms in the fall and winter and spring, I feel like there's a great chance, if we're telling them they can go and be in a classroom and sit down, that they can probably go out and have sports as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. If there's school, I think there's going to be sports, and obviously we still want our kids and our teachers and and everybody involved to stay safe. So I'm sure there will be some measures taken, hand sanitizers. No high five. You want to be overly safe and not be safe at all. So I'm sure there'll be some safety measures when we do return to school and return to sports, temperature checks for kids walking into the classrooms or into the buildings and things like that. So, but yeah, I agree with you. I think once we get school started, August 17th, which is talking to a lot of teachers, they love that start date, and they've been pushing for that for many years. And I know this is a 1-year type of deal because of the virus, but if we can start school on August 17th like they want, I don't see a reason why we can't do sports and because sports is an extension of the classroom for education purposes.
Absolutely. Rob, what do you think about, you kind of agree with that assessment as well? If we have school, we're going to have some sort of sports.
Yeah, I'm absolutely with you guys here. Cause I think in most of these cases, if kids are in classrooms, they might even be around more people at school than they would be on a playing field, outside of football. So I think if you're a student, you're able to go to school every day and be around all these kids and teachers and employees, I think we'll definitely have some sports.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think one thing that the state, the NCHSAA, everyone has to be careful of is there's a, I don't know how big, I don't want to put any number down, but there is a small minority of kids that if they didn't have sports to participate in, they probably wouldn't have the motivation to go to school. And that's something that, you see these tweets and Facebook posts about how important high school sports is to the fabric of our lives. And I'm sure some people can roll their eyes at that, but it's true. I think if we were not to have sports, it would have a dramatic impact on the education system as well. Chris, you mentioned the thermometers, and that's something that Q touched on but didn't really commit to. I think that's probably almost a guarantee that there's going to be thermometer checks with coaches and athletes when we do resume high school sports. And what do you guys think? That's also going to be probably a guarantee that there probably won't be any way to go around it without having thermometer checks.
Yeah, I know the other day.
Go ahead, Rod.
Go ahead, Chris. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, yeah. I mean, yeah, I just think that, the temperature checks, like I said, you'd rather be overly cautious and take those extra steps just to make sure everybody's not sick and everybody stays safe. And it's a little inconvenience. But, if I have to get my temperature checked before I go cover a high school football game, that's fine. I mean, that's just one thing we have to do to make sure we're heading in the right direction. And so, yeah, I won't be surprised. All kids going in, there'll probably be some sort of security and and appropriate measures taken before kids can get on campus or inside the building. And then, going forward into the ball games and various after-school events, I'm sure there'll be all those measures taken just to make sure we're all safe.
Rob, what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's one of the other big takeaways from Q during that press conference, is first saying that protective equipment is definitely something we're going to need in the future. And when I talked to our county AD, he had already begun getting some of those supplies, including the non-touch thermometers, hand washing stations, things like that. Of course, sanitizer and those kind of things are hard to find for everybody. But I think it's good for everybody to start thinking about that as being a staple, especially.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned that, Rob, because I remember I asked the question to Q, how long and what is the time frame that you need to give guidelines to the schools, and she said a week. And I didn't even have to ask a follow-up question. She immediately went into telling people, well, you need to start preparing now and getting that list. And I thought that's something that she expressed to us. And if she's expressing that to us when she's having these calls with athletic directors across the state, that's got to be a huge focal point, is, hey, you guys need to start getting prepared now with the protective equipment and hand sanitizer and stuff like that. Obviously, a big thing that was a discussion before the press conference and hasn't been a discussion really since is the swap of fall and spring seasons. And I think the NCHSAA kind of put a damper on that theory, and, coaches that maybe wanted that. I mean, my opinion is, I think it's right. I agree. I don't want, I think keeping the fall sports as is and the spring sports as is just so easy. But if we can't have football in the fall, I still think that's going to be a serious discussion the NCHSAA is going to have, because sports, I know some of the fringe sports get offended when people say this, but it's just a fact. A lot of sports can't survive without that revenue from football season. You think that that's a discussion they have if football can't be played in the fall, or is it just a cancellation and moving on and a revenue hit, Rod?
Yeah, I think so, man. I mean, obviously now it's like you said, it's a last resort, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense. But what has made sense in 2020? So if we get to fall, we can't play football. I definitely think there are going to be discussions about playing it in the spring, because like you said, football is the lifeblood for a lot of these athletic programs. Whether you like football or not, there's no denying that fact. Year in and year out, football is the moneymaker. So, yeah, if we get to fall and winter and we're not able to have football, then I think you're going to hear everybody pretty riled up about having some kind of football season when we get to spring.
Yeah, and I know the Wilmington, at least athletic directors are, they're in the same boat as Q, kind of. They really at all costs want to avoid switching the season. Chris, what do kind of the Jacksonville, athletic directors and such kind of say? Are they more hesitant to switch, or are some of them open to the idea of maybe having a football season at a different time other than the fall?
Well, I have talked to a few football coaches off record, and I did talk to the quote unquote county athletic director of coordination, coordinator of athletics for Onslow County. And they're all in agreement that as a last resort, have football in the spring. So they'd rather have it in the fall season because they know how much that means. And they want football season to be played at its traditional time, and like I said, just a last resort. And I did want to add something, from something we were talking about earlier, Jackson. A few of the people I have talked to, first day of school is August 17th. First day of practice, official practice, is scheduled for August 1st. Some of the people I've talked to said is what they really think is going to happen, what they anticipate happening, is no sports, and you give it a week for everybody to return to school to see how that goes, and hopefully nobody gets sick. And you give it a week or so, and then you return to sports after maybe a week or two of everybody being back at school to see how that goes. And then, so the season, the fall season might not start until September or September 1st or middle of September. So that's what a lot of people have told me they think is going to happen. I kind of am kind of angling toward that way too. That's why I think that what possibly could happen is us just have a delayed start or a condensed fall season, and maybe only play 7 or 8 football games, and soccer teams only play 12, 13 games or something like that. So, but it's still time to see what's going to go on.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense too, because I agree that it's hard to imagine a scenario where these kids aren't in school and there's games going on, before, in terms of, we haven't had school, we haven't had games since early March. I think school is probably going to come first, and then sports are going to follow. But as long as that, all three of us kind of agreed, as long as there is school and there is that structure and we feel comfortable moving, weeks, months at a time, I do think those sports will come back. One question I got for y'all, I know here in Wilmington, the local baseball teams are trying to play in a summer baseball league. Have there been any talks of that over in y'all's areas? And if so, or is it going to model itself after Legion, after high school? I know a lot of baseball teams and the spring sports especially are trying to give their seniors a little bit of a season this summer. Have there been any talks over in Fayetteville with that, Rod?
I haven't heard anything, Jackson, but when I was reading your stuff about it, man, I think that's something our people would definitely be interested in. So I'll have to ask some questions. Obviously, that'll come from the top of whether the baseball coaches want to do it, but we'll see. I don't know. I think it would give, like you said, give these athletes a chance to have something. And I definitely think if people are able to go to it in small numbers, whatever that might be, it would draw some interest, especially in a time with no sports right now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just curious because I'm honestly a little skeptical that it can still happen. If we're not going to be able to have high school sports till September, it doesn't really make sense how you can have, it's not exactly high school baseball, but it still would be put on by the schools and at their facilities. So we'll see. I'm just interested. Is there any talk about that over in Jacksonville, Chris, or no?
No, we've not heard anything. And in fact, I've been in communication. You mentioned Legion Baseball. Rick Zickafoos is the commissioner of Area 2. He's also the head coach of Post 265 here in Jacksonville. And Area 2, of course, the state made an announcement about a month ago, canceling its season. And but he was still trying to, get in the works and trying to have some sort of summer baseball. And it just kind of fell through, it fell through. So at the moment, there's no talk about any kind of summer baseball or anything like that, and you like to see it, but you understand why they can't logistically make it work right now.
Mm-hmm. So let's put a hypothetical out here. June 15th is the dead period does expire June 15th. There can be practices either June 15th, June 16th. I don't know the exact when exactly would practice would be able to start if the dead period ended June 15th. Are the three of us, are we going out to these workouts and covering it? Are we trying to maintain social distancing? I feel like I'm itching for sports so much. I'm probably going to watch Hoggard or New Hanover football players just run 60-yard sprints. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I can't wait to see some kids get winded, man. Sprints. Come on. We're yearning so much for something. So if that happens, I'll be there for sure.
Yeah. We might have to join them, I think, after these. I don't know about y'all, but the quarantine wait is real. And if I ran out and did a few 40, 60-yard sprints, I might die on the spot. So, Chris, last question for both of you guys. I like to kind of end my Zoom with a little fun question for my guests. let's say hypothetically you could snap your fingers and put on the TV tomorrow any professional or college sporting event. Let's exclude high school for now, but the Masters, NCAA basketball tournament, the playoffs and finals of the NBA. What one sport are you guys choosing to kind of come back into your lives?
I think I would pick the NCAA tournament, March Madness, because I think this year's tournament would have been one of the best ever. I mean, you would have had some teams like San Diego State, you would have Baylor, some of the untraditional teams, the non-blue bloods like Carolina and Duke and Kansas. You would have had some teams kind of come out and perhaps Florida State get to the Final Four, and I think they would have had a great shot to win the whole thing, Florida State, and so you would have had some
the Cinderella story.
Some different teams, I think, compete. I think you would have had some upsets. You would have had some upsets in the first round, which we all love. And so I think some teams would have come out here that were not the traditional strong teams to win it all. Somebody like I said, Baylor or even Gonzaga or something like that. So I think it would have been a great tournament to follow, and it would have been a lot of fun. Chris,
I hope I don't expose you here, but you're the first Carolina fan I've had on my Zooms that has said the NCAA tournament.
Well, it's okay. It comes in bad years come, and but at least I'm not a Miami.
That's fair. The NCAA tournament is a luxury for Miami fans, not an assumption. So, Rod, what about you? What are you choosing?
Yeah, I'm with Chris on the NCAA tournament, but since he chose that one, I would say the Masters probably, man, especially with Tiger coming off the win in 2019. It was good to see him last week, but I want to see him win that green jacket again in 2020, man. That would be something special.
Fortunately, I think, knock on wood, cross our fingers, we might still have that opportunity with a Masters in November. So
yeah, with golf, I definitely think we'll be able to at least see that.
Yeah.
So for him to hold on to that 2019 title a little longer doesn't really hurt my feelings when I think about it like that.
Me neither. Awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate you joining me today. Rod from the Fayetteville Observer, Chris from Jacksonville Daily News. Why don't you guys plug your Twitter accounts, anything you want to plug right now so people can follow you for local high school sports news. Chris, you go first.
Just Chris Miller at JDN Sports on Twitter. I'm still doing some news side stuff, but haven't really been posting the news side stuff on the sports account. But when I do sports, I post it there, and then just looking forward to getting back and posting the scores of all the ball games. That people love seeing those scores on on every night, whether it's a baseball, softball score, or whatever. So just eager to get back to retweeting and tweeting baseball final scores and volleyball and whatever. So just got to keep our fingers crossed.
Yep.
Yeah, I've even got to the point where I can't wait to tweet out about weather delays now, man. Whenever that inevitably happens to me, just look for me on Twitter at Rod Baxley, 2 Ds, and I look forward to having sports back in our lives. But this was fun, guys.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it, guys, very much. Y'all have a great weekend, and we'll be talking soon, I'm sure. Thank you very much.